Everyone, welcome back to the final section of the Politics Show with myself, Councillor Premier, and Councillor Andrew Wood. This is a section we're going to cover general questions that are posed by listeners to us. So I'm going to hand it over to Andrew. Andrew, do you want to kick off with what you want to cover in terms of frequently asked questions and what those answers are?
Yeah, so probably the most common question that I get, and I suspect most councillors get, are sort of related to housing issues and sort of housing associations in particular. So whether it's, water flooding or things breaking down, we kind of get lots of questions, obviously not just Tower Hamlets homes, but, there's lots of other housing associations out there as well. And I kind of, try and explain to people what the different steps are. So I thought it'd be worth kind of just summarising what those steps are. And the first piece of advice I always give about anything to do with Tower Hamlets Council or these issues more generally is you can never rely on just kind of one route. You've always got to try multiple kind of avenues at the same time. So you've got to try different things. I think it's a technical term sometimes is a shotgun approach. You just kind of shoot a shotgun and see what lands. But some of the things that you can do is obviously contact your local councillor, somebody like myself or Councillor Peru Mir. You can find our contact details on the Tower Hamlets Council website. There's quite a good section there to sort of how you find them. So just find your local councillor, write to them. It may well be that they already are aware of the issue from somebody else, so they may be able to give you an immediate answer. But one of the things they can do is something called a members' inquiry, where we write in to the council on your behalf. The council then forward that onto the housing association. So we can ask questions, so we can't sort of, demand things. But if you word the question in the correct way, then you can get the right outcomes. We don't always get good answers. Sometimes we don't get answers at all, but that's certainly the first thing to try. The second thing is actually to go to the housing association's own website and find the complaints process and basically put a complaint in. It may not help on a short term, but the longer it continues, it may help in kind of the later stages. So always have a think about putting in an official complaint, because again, it's another way of escalating an issue within the organisation. There's something called the Housing Ombudsman. And it was actually a couple of years before I realised actually they're based in Tower Hamlets on the Isle of Dogs, but that's where they are. But you can't involve the Housing Ombudsman from day one. You can only involve them at the end of the complaints process with your housing association. And that's why sometimes it's important to start the complaints early. And the last one is sometimes you use Twitter. I mean, again, I'm assuming you have some technical knowledge, but maybe within your wider family or friends, maybe you're on Twitter, or you can get on Twitter, sort of direct these questions on Twitter at them, because Twitter is public and it's read by people like myself and Councillor Mir and Mayor John Biggs and all the rest of it. They don't like those kind of complaints being raised in public. So sometimes, not always, that also helps with issues as well. And then sometimes in the worst cases, sometimes it's worth talking to the local press as well and trying to get your issue into the newspapers. There have been a couple of tragic cases where people were so fed up, they went to the press, and actually that also helped as well. Maybe not the more routine stuff, but if things go badly wrong, that's something to keep in mind. And then, talk to other people. Sometimes also on social media, I see people put questions onto social media, onto Facebook or other things like that. And what they will then find is, for a classic example, somebody was saying, oh, the water was cut off. Why? And then somebody then said, well, it's because Thames Water were digging out the street around the corner. So sometimes it's worth reaching out on social media as well to find out from other people if they've got solutions to these problems as well. And those are kind of the typical things that you should do if you're running into any kind of problem and not getting any result from your housing association or the council or whoever it might be. So that's my suggested top tips.
No, cool. No. Thanks for that. And I think a lot of people do get confused. I know a lot of people contact their MP, the local MP, as the first point of call. I know I get used to and still get a lot of inquiries that are passed from the MP onto the local councillors. So a lot of people just don't know who is the point of contact for what issues. Local issues like services from the council or housing, that's your local councillor. anything to do with central government, such as immigration, or say you've got a relative stuck abroad, which is the responsibility of the Foreign Office, that you direct them through the MP. And that's the same way as a councillor. An MP can raise questions, and through those questions something gets done. And what I found was that when we raise a question about an issue, what would happen is the housing association of the council would first remedy the situation, and then basically give the answer saying, we are aware of it, this is what we've done. So actually the question from your councillor actually prompts the organization to actually prioritize or fast track the action, realizing that someone's onto it, and it just gives an impetus for the situation to be solved. But definitely any issues, contact your local councillor. One of the things that I've come across is the health priority on housing, and there's been a lot of misunderstanding with regards to that I've come across over and over again. So one of the things is, if you're on the housing list and if it's assessed that due to your health issues you need to be housed or prioritized in terms of housing, then the council has to prioritize the housing. So I'll just give an example. A basic example is, just imagine you need to use a wheelchair and your current accommodation has no lift. You're at the like a top of a block. The council has to prioritize you in getting you suitable housing to enable you to like move around in a wheelchair, for example, and access your property without any detriment to your health. So that's just a basic example. So what I found time and time again is people go to their GP or people go to the hospital and have a conversation with the doctor, and the doctor goes, this is not acceptable, you need to get housing, and they give a letter, and they assume that because of that they should be prioritized in terms of housing. And what they don't realize is that Tower Hamlets Council has its own criteria of what a criteria of who they should prioritize in terms of their health, which is totally different from your GP and totally different from your hospital. And whatever letters you have from your GP and hospital, they will not take it into account. What they would want is for you to fill in the form, you get a form, you fill it in, and then that is assessed. Initially, just looking at the paperwork, if that is rejected, you have the opportunity to appeal, and then the council officers will look at the appeal. If they assess you, the council will send their own team called an occupational therapy team to actually look at you, just assess your where you live. And if they believe that you should be prioritized on housing, you'll be prioritized. If they don't believe that you shouldn't be prioritized, and that's it. Regardless of what your GP or your doctor says. And time again, I've had people come and go, no, this is outrageous, and just trying to explain that to them that it's been hard going, and it's just something that I've come across time and time again. Have you come across this issue, Andrew?
In your case? It comes up a lot, and it's one of the questions I ask people who are on the housing waiting list is that, have your health conditions changed? And if they've changed negatively, then it may be worth you sort of asking that question of the council as to whether you'd move up into a band. Because if you're going up the bands, it means that it could mean a dramatic reduction in how long you wait for a property. I'm not sort of saying cut it by 90%, but it could mean saving a couple of years. But then there are also lots of people who do have health issues, and probably more than there is space. So again, the council will have some mechanism for sorting this out. But I've dealt, particularly this last year with mold. Mold seems to be a real problem this winter, even much so than previous years. And I guess that's also because it's been cold, and also because people have been cooped up at home because of lockdown has made it even worse. And obviously, mold has health implications. So I've dealt with a few families who've got health issues because of the mold. And one partial solution would be to move into a bigger property, because there are basically too many people in one property that's not well ventilated enough. But then the health issues may not be bad enough to justify that move, unfortunately. And it's a really difficult conversation to have with people, because the longer they stay in that property, the worse their health becomes.
Well, I've come across people bringing statutory nuisance cases against their social landlords for houses that are not fit, and chronic dampness is one of those issues, and always in all cases the housing association settles before the actual hearing. So again, that is an avenue available for, and if you're on benefits, you will get legal aid. I think it's something else, in the sense that the firm takes a percentage of your compensation or something like that. It's something from the Law Society, but it is an issue. But the other issue I've come across is the company that Tower Hamlets Council uses for the initial assessments always seems to reject applications, and it's not. There was newspaper articles done on the company that a lot of local authorities have used it. What it's found is that it's just a desktop. They're not actually looking through the applications, it seems. And I know it's been raising over scrutiny with Tower Hamlets Council about the use of this agency that they use for the assessments. I know Islington Council have stopped using that, and I've got their council officers now to basically look at these assessments. Have you come across that issue of using this company to do the assessments?
So I'm aware of it, because it has been discussed at Overview and Scrutiny Committee. But to be fair to the council, this is an incredibly difficult situation, because you have more people on the housing waiting list than you have properties coming up, and there's always going to be battles as long as that's the situation. And I think what's going to be very interesting is sort of what happens to the housing market in Tower Hamlets. We're talking about rent prices going up, but in the last couple of months they've been going down. So will private renting become more affordable if prices go down? There's more A and B properties come on the market. We just don't know that yet. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens to that over the next year.
Well, that brings us to the Q&A session, question and answer session. But next week we're going to do a special on the budget, where Andrew and I go through the budget. It seems like there's been a rebellion. I've got a message. There's been a rebellion of councillors writing a letter. Apparently it's been published. It's supposed to be a secret letter, but it's all over social media, claiming the new popular rates, donning on the mantle of the popular rates councillors. But Andrew and I will go through, dissect the budget, and we'll give you a summary of what's been happening. Is the rebellion going to go forward? Are we going to see a revolution in the town hall, or is this our equivalent of the Boston Tea Party? Come tune in next week, and we'll go through the budget. But thanks again for watching, and enjoy the weekend, and look forward to seeing you again at the Weekly Politics Show every Friday, 7 to 8. Thank you very much. Thank you.